Hello and welcome back to the game room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love? Talking about games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me. And that's not the 4,394 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. Let me just start off with thank you all so much, everyone who had kind words to say about the passing of my beloved other kitty. It means the world to me. Hold your pets close, people. There's some great comments in the comment sections talking about it. Once again, I've noticed that if I reply to comments, the algorithm doesn't seem to like it, but I do read all of them. And thank you all so much, as well as my heart goes out to some of you who had said that you had recently experienced the same thing. And also just thank you guys for the tremendous response we've been getting from the Nintendo Switch videos. I was not intending on becoming a Switch YouTuber, but apparently, according to some of you, I am now. So might as well run with this gravy train while it's going, because the video I put out 2 weeks ago is now I think it's the fourth best performing video I've ever had on the channel in the entire almost 10 years since I've been doing this. Thank you guys. Just thank you. We had another banner month. We're almost at 4,400 subs. We just hit 4,000, I want to say, what, a month ago? So thank you guys so much. We got 10 more Switch games we're taking a look at this week. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's check it out. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
So the first game we're going to look at this week was a game that for years now I've been seeing it referenced, but I'd never really heard anything about it. I'll be honest, once COVID hit, there was kind of a blind spot with some of the newer releases, especially, PS5, Switch, that range, maybe circa 2021 to 24 for myself. It's where I really started to kind of wane as it goes. There's ebbs and flows with modern games. So this game came out, I want to say it came out as a PC release first, and generally when that happens for myself, if I don't hear about it or get on the boat early, kind of just goes by the wayside. And this is one of those games where it's a roguelike card building deck builder, which already my brain wants to go off on. But when I played that game I talked about 2 weeks ago called Fights in Tight Spaces, and also when I played Balatro last year, a lot of people were comparing it to Slay the Spire. Apparently this is just the game that, it didn't start the genre, but in a lot of people's eyes is one of the greatest games ever made. And what it is you choose one of 4 different heroes. Each one has its own corresponding move set. So they all start with a bunch of strikes, a bunch of blocks, and then a few special abilities. And as you progress through the levels, every time you beat one of the stages, you can choose to add a card to your deck. You might add a potion, and it's just, the more you play it, you can go down different pathways where you unlock treasure or you go to a merchant. And it's kind of like a bite-sized turn-based RPG in that regard. However, if you die, you die and you go right back to the beginning of the game and start with the base cards and nothing else. And as you start each go around, there's this big entity. You'll say, hey, do you want to increase your life? Do you want to do this? There are these relics you can get that, between levels will heal you or will allow you to suddenly get shield. And it's a remarkably simple concept. And I gotta say, after playing it, I did buy into it pretty hard. I do see the appeal, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it's one of the greatest games ever made, but as someone who is kind of on the fence, I got a toe into the RPG gaming side and I have a toe into the action gaming side. And I always find it funny when I see one side say the other games suck and vice versa. Give this one a shot. And this one is getting collectible. As soon as I found out there was a physical copy, I went out and bought it for the Switch. And I think it's just the Switch and the PS4. And both of them are like $40, $50 complete. And I think I bought this new. It's not really different between new and complete. And that's just what's happening. Like these, if it's already at this baseline, the Switch really is not acting like a lot of consoles I've ever seen. Generally, games that are 4, 5, 6 years old now on the Switch that are physical, they're dirt cheap. Not the case. There's too many collectors out there now. There's too many speculators out there now. So I get it. People are waiting for the Xbox 360-like crash, PS2-like crash, GameCube-like crash. We might be in a rare phenomenon, guys, where a $40 brand new game might be the bottom. And especially for something like this, if it sounds interesting. It's one of those games where you have to beat it multiple times to get the true ending, which kind of turns me off at first. And unlike fights in tight spaces, if you lose a run, you have to restart it. So you can't just try that level again. But really, really fun. I get it, guys. It's not my favorite game of all time. I'm not going to say that. But as far as time wasters go, which a lot of these roguelike games really succeed at being time wasters, this one is very engaging, but also will keep you playing for hours on end. You know, a given run, if you make it all the way through the different towers, can take you a couple of hours, or maybe an hour and a half. It just depends. It just depends. Each run is a little different. Alright, speaking of Nintendo games that just never seem to drop in value, this was the first ever one of this franchise for Nintendo that I bought day one just because it looked so damn good. And that was Kirby and the Forgotten Land, right? Yeah, Forgotten Land. Basically, it's 3D Kirby with a little bit of a Mario Odyssey, Mario 64 flavor. I've not really been a big fan of Kirby ever since he came out on the Game Boy. It was always one of those things where he was the annoying guy in Smash Brothers that everyone played as who had no skill at the game because they could float endlessly, and your little brother would play it and they would just go and do the downward thing with a rock, and if you were good at countering it, you could just knock them out, and it's really not a challenge whatsoever. But as far as the games go, they were always known as easy kid games. And for someone who's a Nintendo fanboy to say, oh, you know, I like my kid-friendly games, but, oh yeah, Kirby, no. I never picked up any of the Kirbys while they were current. Didn't get any of the Super NES ones, N64, GameCube, Wii U. I mean, I think I came across the Kirby's Epic Yarn, because I heard that was really good. Never played it, and then I don't know, something about this game appealed to me. I don't know if it's because you could turn it into a car, or because it had that 3D Mario aesthetic, and they really knocked Mario Odyssey out of the park so much that I just really wanted to try that game. But it is tremendous fun. It's got nice diversity of levels. There's an interesting enough story. It's easy, but it's not so easy that it's just not worth playing. There's even some bonus levels here and there. And once again, not to get into spoilers, but it definitely, towards the end, there is some significant ramp up that does put in some challenge, but for the most part, you can breeze your way through this game. It's colorful, it's bright, it's very fun to play, and it's likely going to be one of those ones that is highly sought after and desirable, as most first-party Nintendo titles tend to be, and that's why, you know, $40 once again might be the bottom for this game. Now, moving over to a game that I have no background in. There was a bunch of them released, I want to say on the DS, and this got a surprise remaster of the first, second, and third game, but it didn't come out physically, except if you ordered it on PlayAsia, and even then you had to buy the Chinese version that had an English mode in it, and that is the Etrian Odyssey Saga. So that's 1, 2, and 3. I still haven't even played this damn thing, yet it's open. I know I bought this brand new, but I really don't remember opening it. Whatever. But this was expensive. This was one of the most expensive imports I've gotten. I think it was up there with the Pixel remasters. And there was just something about it. I've heard people talk about how much fun those games are, where you're exploring dungeons, and then the benefit of the Switch version has a map that builds out as you're exploring. And it just seemed like something that, you know what, I should bite the bullet on this. I should get it physically, because I have a feeling I'll regret it if I don't. Especially if it turns out to be something like a Lost in Rain situation on the PS3. So I picked it up. I have not played it, but that's just one I'm throwing out there for you guys. So if this gameplay looks interesting, and you like these sort of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon type games, that's allegedly, I think that's what this is like. Piqued my interest. something I wanted to have. I like having oddities like that. And what's funny is with my Switch collecting, I definitely was, hardcore collector mindset at the offset. I bought more special editions and weird editions for the Switch than I ever have with any other system. But that was one that I don't regret getting, even though I haven't played it yet. I'll get to it eventually. And that's one I'd recommend for you guys too, because it's likely going to be very sought after, because I know there's a pretty fervent fan base for those games. So let's say you get, on the Switch 2, 5 years from now, they finally release a sequel. That one's probably going to skyrocket. Speaking of special editions, now, I kind of cooled off on special editions around 2020, 2021, but when they announced this one, I literally ran to the damn GameStop to pre-order this in person, almost at the height of COVID. Like, it was one of those things where I had to go out because you couldn't order it online. I missed the damn pre-order window. All the scalper bots got it, but I was able to get one by going to GameStop and pre-ordering the Fire Emblem 30th anniversary as I knock my lights over. And this was something that I was so happy to get, even though it doesn't have a damn physical copy of the game on the cart. So Fire Emblem is a long-running Nintendo series. It originally started back in 1990. It was the second game, I think, from Intelligent Systems, which had made a game called NES Wars, which was actually called Famicom Wars. It never came out in the States, which then later became Advance Wars, etc. But anyways, the first game was called Fire Emblem, the Shadow Dragon and the Binding Light. They then remastered Fire Emblem 1 on the Super NES for Fire Emblem 3, but we didn't get that one either. We actually didn't get this game in the States until the DS when they released Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon. And when they released Shadow Dragon, they actually added some bonus chapters and a couple of different features. And then finally, in 2020, they released this. And what's cool is that there's a poster in here that looks like a Nintendo Power cover as if it came out that year. And I have every single copy of Nintendo Power outside of some of the first leaflet issues. And then one issue. I'm missing one issue of Nintendo Power now that I can buy. I just haven't gotten around to it. But there's a glass, or not a glass, but like a resin cartridge of an NES game that comes in this that I've wanted to display. I just haven't. And it's such a cool package. But Fire Emblem itself is the game. It came with a digital download code, which I did double dip on just because I'm one of those guys where I put my money where my mouth is. I am a huge Fire Emblem fan, and I will go out and support them. If there is something out there to buy, I am going to buy it. And that's kind of where the rubber meets the road with a lot of this, is that you can talk about deals, you can talk about them not coming out with original concepts, original games, but if something does come out that does pique your interest, then if you gotta go support it with your wallet. You have to. Especially when there's so few options out there, you gotta do it. And that's why I supported this one. I supported Echoes when it came out. If they ever come out with a remake of Genealogy or a Thracia or any of those, I'm gonna be getting them day one. And if you haven't played the first Fire Emblem, I've played the Shadow Dragon and beat it. I've played the Japanese translation of the of Fire Emblem 3, where they remade the first game as part 1, and then the part 2 is actually a sequel. I played that one too. This is early Fire Emblem, so if you know the series at all, it tells you when you're about to attack someone what your damage is going to be, and then what their damage to you is going to be, and if you die, it's dead forever. So there's permadeath in it. That's what makes it so difficult. They've added things in the future called, instead of, they call it classic mode if you want to play with permadeath, but back then there was no classic mode or hardcore mode. What it was, you played it and you died. And in this game, Marth the Lord is a complete weakling, is always a liability, and if he dies, it's game over. I had to abuse this and that in order to get through the levels. And this is just a remake of the first one. So warts and all, before the triangle system, you have to do the math. So you have to look at your enemies' attack power and defense, then you look at your attack power and defense, and then you can extrapolate what you're going to do. But that's where the magic is a lot of people don't like RPGs because of the mystery element. You're playing Final Fantasy and you'll do a damage for 100, or you do damage for 500. Why does that happen? In Fire Emblem, there's none of that mystery. If you know what your attack power is, that's what your damage is. If you know what their defense is, that's how much they'll block, and so on and so forth. I spent way too much time on this, but this is one that's still available, like around $100 or so. If you can find it, there's a lot of us Fire Emblem fans out there, and there's going to be people who didn't know this came out just based on the circumstances, and when they find out about it, that's one you're going to want to grab. All right. Speaking of me getting weird editions, so there was a game that came out that kind of came out of left field. Back in 2014, 2015, 2016, around the mid-2010s, you started to really see a lot of the creators leave the companies that they made games famous for and do a Kickstarter. That's where you had Mighty Number 9 come out, you had Yooka-Laylee come out, and then you also had a Symphony of the Night spiritual successor come out called Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. However, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is not the game we're talking about. We're talking about Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Now, this is the silver box edition, but you can get any old run-of-the-mill edition of it. This was a game I was not aware was coming out. So one of the stretch goals for Ritual of the Night was to do an NES-style spin-off game called Curse of the Moon before Ritual of the Night came out. And this game, I feel like, just shadow dropped out of nowhere, and I think it was 2018, maybe 2017, but I'm pretty sure it's 2018. And it's basically Castlevania 4. If you like the old school NES Castlevanias, it takes right where Castlevania 3 left off. The music is terrific. There are 4 different playable characters. You start the game as one of them, and each level you go through, you can then recruit one of the other playable characters, or you can take their power, and then if you do that, you can have this all-powerful Zangetsu at the end of the game. There's also multiple playthroughs too. So depending on which options you do, you get multiple playthroughs. So as someone who grew up on the NES, this was such a great treat because it was really one of the first times I felt like one of these indie games came out that truly understood what that old retro style was like, and they knocked it out of the park. Now, it was short-lived because Curse of the Moon 2, I don't really care for. I feel like it got a little too big for its britches. As well as Ritual of the Night famously was a game that, it's probably of all those ones of Yooka-Laylee and Mighty Number 9, Ritual of the Night, that one's by far the best as far as the reception goes. I just didn't enjoy it that much. I also played it on the Switch where the optimization for it was terrible. But this game is incredible. And there's different versions you can get. Limited Run put it out. But highly, highly recommend picking up this game. It is one of my favorite games on the Switch. Though the year it came out was a very strong year. So it didn't make my top 10 of that year of games I played. Though it probably should have. Now here's a recent one I got. I can't remember. I saw this recommended on another YouTuber's channel. But I just can't remember who. Sorry about that. But that game is Schim. And this is very interesting. Now I'm going to say there's a caveat. Yes, this might be a spoiler, but the whole point of the game is that you are a shadow. So imagine in a world where shadows are, actual living essences that follow you around. And so you start off as the shadow for this little boy, and quickly within 5 minutes you see this little boy go from a little boy to a young man to an adult man, kind of in a dead-end job, who's then getting kicked out of his job, really at a low point, and then somehow his shadow gets removed from him. And I gotta tell you, I'm not a huge guy when it comes to these emotional this and that, but, the beginning of the game, especially being a father of a young, soon-to-be 3-year-old girl, you really start seeing life in a different perspective. So I can say the beginning of this game very much resonated and set a great tone. Where the game drops off a little bit is that the entire game, you are the shadow trying to get back to the owner. So you get to a level and the person is sitting in a coffee shop. So you're trying to get through to him, and the only way you can progress is by hopping to other shadows. So there's a lot of games out there actually that use this kind of concept. There was Lost in Shadow. This is not the first time I've seen this kind of mechanic, but it's very cool the way they use it, the way they make the shadows kind of fluid. You see other shadow entities as you're going out there. But what makes it so annoying is that at every level, you don't get to the guy. So it's kind of one of those things where, you see him getting coffee, so you get all the way across the room, and right as you're about to get to him, he walks across the room. And it gets to the point where the tedium, the repeat nature of it, the annoyingness of it, of like, okay, I'd rather just, instead of chasing the owner around every level, just try and get through the levels, because at a certain point, enough is enough. How many times am I going to have a near miss with this son of a, like, oh my god, it gets so frustrating. Other than that, stellar game, really fun. Little too long in my opinion. I mean, it's hard to say a little too long when it's like a 3 to 5 hour game. But because of that constant annoyance, it just really irked me to no end that I kept failing. Even though you beat the level, you feel like you fail every time. And finally, when you get to the end of the game, it's got a nice message, this and that. It's worth playing, and I want to say I got it on Amazon for like $20, $30. But if that looks interesting to you, you guys should pick it up because it is stellar gameplay. It goes on a little too long. But it's cool the way they use the shadow environments because you'll have levels where, lights, like headlights will go on, or you have to induce a headlight to go on to make a shadow, and then the shadow moves. You have to do so that. Like, it's very clever gameplay. All right, a game that I finally picked up a damn physical copy for. This, when it came out, was one of the chief reasons why I wanted an Xbox One. Was this game was previewed, and then it came out digital only. I didn't have time. I want to say it was 2017, and 2017 was a banger. 17, 18 were two of the greatest years in recent memory that I can think of. But I did play this game in 2018, absolutely loved it, and that game is Cuphead. Now, why am I saying to get this on the Switch? It's because they have it now with the built-in DLC. So when this game originally came out, it was 2-player, but they didn't have the Teapot Girl as well as the included, I think it's called Last Delicious Course DLC. That's what it is. So this has everything on the cart, and it's just a nice way to have it, and it's not gone down. I've been looking for that game for a long time. I've never seen it less than $20-ish or $30 what it typically goes for. I mean, I've seen a few times at Walmart or Target or something where they're clearing them out, but of course that never happens to us, right? Every time we go to those stores, all those copies are gone. But as far as gameplay goes, it famously is the game where a game reviewer could not figure out how to jump over a ledge. So yeah, definitely, this is really what started peeling my eyes back about, oh wow, game reviewers do not play games. They are not the target audience. So it's funny how that happened. But really, really phenomenal gameplay. It is a mix of a run and gun shooter and then a boss rush mode. It is primarily a boss rush mode, but there are some levels where you're going through and running through various small, short slice of stages where you're doing some platforming. But the main attraction is the really inventive, creative boss battles and then the incredible art style. I really loved this game when I played it back in 2018. It is such a great game that the stupid people who run Xbox did not keep it exclusive. I tell you, what was so strange about the Xbox One was once the damn thing launched, I swear all the games I was looking forward to it were indie games. So it was Below, Cuphead, and then Ori and the Blind Forest, and every single one of those games is no longer Xbox exclusive. And you wonder why Xbox is dying. But yeah, Cuphead, one you should pick up because it's just not gone down in value and is a stellar game. And who knows, now that God, it's been almost, 7-8 years now since it released? Love to see a sequel now. Alright, this is a fun one that was a chance I took on limited run games. I tend to not... I try not to buy as many limited run games just because it takes so long to get the damn things. But this game just had an intriguing concept, and that was Minit. And the way this game works is that every single time you play it, you have 1 minute to get something done, and then your character dies, and then respawns, and then you have 1 minute again. Now, there are things that you can do to manipulate this a little bit, but not really. Everything you do within the game, you have a 1 minute session, and then you go back to the start. Now, you will get permanent upgrades, so it's kind of like a Zelda clone with a 1 minute timeline. So if you're searching around in the forest, you find a power ring that now allows you to jump. You die, you get back to your base camp, and then you can jump. So then you can get to new places throughout the game. You also unlock shortcuts as you're playing it, so that helps you traverse this very large map, because on paper, it's kind of like, what can you get done in a minute? Not much, but with a cool gameplay loop like this, now it's not a long game. You get it done 2-3 hours, I believe. It doesn't take long, but I still really appreciate that. And this is one that if you've heard of it or ever seen it, give it a shot. I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of the better risks I've taken with limited run games because as someone who was buying everything they put out back in 2015-16, I have a lot of stinkers, and that one is not one of them. All right, last couple here. So this is a game that I want to say I saw, I think Radical Reggie recommend on the PS4, and I went to go and try and get it, and it was always too expensive, so that when they launched a Switch edition, I bought it day one, and that was Curse Castilla EX. I've not opened it, of course, because I'm an idiot. I haven't had time, but this is more or less a spiritual successor, or a game that plays in the style of the old Ghosts and Goblins games, Ghouls and Ghosts games, that kind of thing. Especially Super Ghouls and Ghosts, or Super Ghosts and Goblins. I can never remember. I think it's Super Ghosts and Goblins for the SNES. So that kind of gameplay, and it looked like a lot of fun. I can't talk to it that much, but this is a game that was stupid expensive on the PS4 ever since it came out. And looking at it, the Switch editions are still like pretty affordable in my opinion, like $50-$60 for a brand new copy. That is not unreasonable. There's a lot of cool knickknacks and tchotchkes that come with it. I don't care for that kind of stuff. I'd rather just have the game, but when it came out, the only way you could get it is this edition. I think there's a PAL edition too. But that is one to jump on. I really, really think, I mean, it just looked like a quality game. I can't say I recommend it because I haven't played it, but I think that's one that as a collector I can recommend getting. And just, I trust people whose opinion I've seen on that game because it looks really good from what I've seen. Alright, and then the last game we're going to talk about, which funnily enough, I didn't even know I bought the PAL edition of this game, but that is Tunic. So Tunic is more or less a love letter to Zelda games. It is Microsoft's version of Zelda, and it's yet another game that was exclusive to the Xbox, and then they stupidly released it on other consoles. So I'm going to buy it on the Switch. And the way this game works is it's literally a Zelda clone. It's in an isometric view, and the thing that makes this game so riveting is that there is no dialogue in it, so it kind of has that Hyperlight Drifter feel. You go through the various different stages, and you'll start noticing certain lines of dialogue, or certain codes, or certain secrets, as well as you will pick up manual pages. So it's got like I said, it's evoking an NES game because the manual pages look like an NES manual. And as you've picked them up and pieced them together, you'll see maps of the different dungeons, you'll see different secret codes, and there's even multiple different ways to get through certain events, but there's also different endings. So once again, spoilers, there's different endings depending on how you perform. Now, I did not get the good ending. The only way you get the good ending is if you get all of the secret pages and then figure out all this other stuff. There's this door you have to open that I wasn't able to do. It's not that I wasn't able to do, but I kind of lose interest. I'm not a huge fan of things that are so obtuse. In my opinion, yes, NES gaming was very spectacular for that level of I did it, but also on the flip side, it's very, very frustrating and irritating and doesn't cater well to people with lives. You know, when we were kids, 5, 7, 8, 10, 15, you could spend a month, 2 months, 3 months playing the same game. Sometimes you had to because you didn't have another game that you wanted to play. Nowadays, we don't really have that problem. You know, the access to games is so much more. You can find tons of quality games for not that much money. There's things like World of Warcraft, free-to-play game. Like, there's a lot competing for your time. So I did not have the patience to throw my head against the wall for so long in this game, especially it's longer than I thought it was going to be. Now, it's a very enjoyable experience. I liked this game a lot. I had played this right around the same time I played a game called Death's Door, which is another Zelda clone that I did not enjoy all that much. But be warned that if you want the best ending, you truly have to do everything. And at this point, it's probably going to require you to look to a guide, which I just don't like doing. I don't like looking at a guide. If I look at a guide, I feel like I failed. Very, very rarely will I rely on one. You know, I've used them sparingly in the past. Generally, it's with a long-form RPG where I just don't know where to go, or did I miss a certain track of dialogue, or one of those BS things that can get you hard stuck in something. But yeah, still phenomenal game, one that you should pick up. It's fairly affordable. What's nice about the Switch, region free. So yes, I don't really care that I have the one that's PAL edition, and supposedly this is a collector's edition because it comes with some bonuses, though I think that bonus is just like stuff like a poster or or who knows. But it was the first physical edition that was launched, so I picked it up. But anyways, there you go. So there you have it. That is 10 more games you should pick up for the Switch before prices go up. I still can't believe it, guys. Thank you all so much. The amount of growth we had in February, I think that was the best month the channel's ever had. And we are fast approaching the 10-year anniversary of this channel. And yes, some of the comments I got, like one of them was like, he thought the production value was so good, this must be a big YouTuber, until they said I had 4,000 viewers. But like, hey, for me, I will take 4,000 all day long. I was sitting at 1,000 forever. So, you know, there's no such thing as big and small in my eyes. Every single one of you guys make me feel like I'm the biggest YouTuber ever. So thank you. Thank you for the comments, sharing it, all the new subscribers, all the well wishes again. Once again, cherish your animals, guys. It is such a hollow feel, man, and it has been a long time since I've lost a pet. So, anyways, want to give a special shout out to a couple of fans from the channel who have sent in some Xbox games that we are getting the 40th Xbox 360 video going. So you guys, we're gonna be talking about those. Sorry, it hasn't happened yet, but like I said, the Switch is just taken off, and you gotta go where the trends are. You know, I've been a horrible YouTuber for my whole 10 years because I never did that, and I'm not really chasing it, but this is nice because it hit at a good time where I really just, it's been rough, and a lot of these are games I've played before, so I'm just talking about them. So forgive me if I lose some of the details. Some of these games I haven't played in 5 or 6 years, but hey, it is such a pleasure getting a hold of you guys. As a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.